We're a digital performance specialist, and TrafficDefender is the product that we released about 3 months ago. From very much an upwards trend that we're seeing across the variety of businesses that we work with. Typically we work behind the scenes. People don't tend to know our brand necessarily, but you certainly know all of the brands that we work with. So what I'd like to do is just go on to this slide first of all. So this is an example I'm going to share with you. It's anonymised. It's taken from a set of financial accounts covering the peak trade of last year's Christmas. And this particular company did a huge amount, 233 million of online sales. So they're one of the big players, and it was by far and away their most successful Christmas trading period last year. And forecasts are showing that they're going to do far, far better again this year as well, which, as I'm sure you'll agree, is a huge success, a massive success for anyone to build that. From our point of view, though, we look at things slightly differently. So from our point of view, because we're performance specialists, if their website were to see performance of 1 second slower in load time for a period of an hour, that would lose them just over £8,000. So, okay, for someone of that scale, that's maybe not too bad. However, if that website were to go down entirely for the same period of time, you're looking at £44,000 there or thereabouts. Now, just to put this into context for peak trade, these figures were taken from market analysis that we commonly do, but equally it averages over the year. So what you would expect is actually during the period where something like Boxing Day, the run up to Christmas, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all of those sort of peak time events, you would expect those figures to be far higher and far, far scarier. So this is the angle that I'm going to come in for you and give you a bit of advice, a bit of top tip from our side of things around how success, you don't want to pay a price for your success necessarily, or at least minimise that price if possible. So first of all, what I'll do is I'll talk to you about a challenge that we were set. We work with JD Williams. You probably know some of the other brands that they've got up there, part of the M Brown group. And effectively, they secured a great deal of investment, and the purpose of that investment was to increase their brand awareness of jdwilliams.co.uk. So at that point, it sat at around 4%, give or take, and what they wanted to do was they wanted to push that up to 89%, literally within the period of about 3 weeks. So what they did is they decided that they were going to do peak time advertising on TV. You may have seen Lorraine Kelly dancing around a coffee shop at some point if you watch X Factor, Coronation Street, Emmerdale. I believe it's in daytime, Loose Women, all of that sort of stuff at this moment in time. So clearly at their target market. And effectively they had 2 months to prepare for this. Intechnica, working with them, we had about a month and a half of that time to prepare. So what we did is we implemented a solution called TrafficDefender. And effectively what TrafficDefender is think of it as a safety net for your website. So at peak trading times, it's very, very difficult to understand exactly how much traffic is going to come to your website, especially if you take up some of the top tips from the previous presentation. You start to do things really, really well, you obviously increase demand going to your website. Commonly what we find is that is seen as a really, really good thing, and it is a really, really good thing. However, a lot of businesses that we talk to don't really understand how much traffic their infrastructure of their website can actually stand, can actually withhold. Okay? So what we do is we work with these guys and we help them to understand that. So what you do in TrafficDefender is you set a series of thresholds, if you will, as to how much each URL can hold in terms of concurrent visitors, essentially. So while it's under that threshold, effectively what TrafficDefender does is it just feeds those people straight through to your web page that they're looking to go onto with little or no latency. However, it's when you start getting towards the boundaries of what your website can actually handle, that's where the interesting point comes in. So when a website starts getting towards its buffers, what tends to happen is two things. It's a bit of a sweeping statement, but what will happen is it'll typically slow down, and the more towards those buffers you move, the more it will slow down. And then you'll get to a critical point, and what will happen is the website is highly likely to fail entirely. So the thing to think about here isn't necessarily about those customers trying to get to your website, because largely what happens is the people already in your website, that tends to be a bigger number. And they're the people that are actively browsing, they're actively adding to their baskets and so on, and hopefully are buying your products. What Traffic Defender therefore does is it then, at that point where we feel there's going to be some slowdown, way before we actually get outright failure, is it kicks in a transparent queuing system, essentially. So we would take a branded page from you guys, so it has all of your branding, all of your messaging. We surface some functionality of Traffic Defender in there, such as positioning of the queue, estimated time to entry of the website, and a whole raft of other things. And then when there is capacity, it works on a fair queuing system. It then feeds those people into your website. Now, the reason I've explained the product first rather than the result is that there are some interesting things that we've learned. So there's a thing called bounce rate. So bounce rate means essentially those people who get fed up of slow load times on your web page and they leave your website and a high propensity not to return. Obviously, 100% bounce rate if your website fails entirely, because everybody goes. What we found in the case of JD Williams is that rather than bounce rate sitting at, I don't know, at a slow site somewhere in the region of about 80, 88%, somewhere around there, it dropped to 2% out of the queue. And the people that were already in the site actually stayed for longer as well, and the people that then entered into the site when there was capacity, they stayed for longer as well. So it was a hugely important exercise for JD Williams to understand exactly what their infrastructure could withhold and have that link between marketing and the IT guys, and that's a crucial point. Because where that link doesn't exist, the IT guys don't expect that spike coming, and therefore they can't provision for that spike happening. Peak trade is an absolute classic example of this. So it's something we wanted to share. So when we actually went live with this, during the X Factor break, for instance, which is the one I brought up there, we had 42 times more traffic going through, and it did initiate a queue. We queued about 700 customers for them from that one advert, and it lasted for about 1.5 minutes. So if you think about the dynamics of this, you're in the middle of a peak time TV show that people are actively watching. So the spike of that goes up incredibly quickly because people are typically picking up smartphones, tablets was what JD Williams were aiming at. And then what happens is obviously when the show comes back on, then that spike drops off dramatically. So it puts tremendous stress on the infrastructure that your website is sat upon. And that's where Traffic Defender comes in and helps. So, can you get it before Christmas? Yes, is the answer. The way we've architected our system is that effectively we come in, we consult with you, we help you to understand your traffic patterns, what those spikes are likely to be, where your thresholds lie, because it's sometimes quite difficult to do that. Then what we do is we configure the system, we upload that HTML page, and we test against all of that, and then effectively you point your DNS at Traffic Defender, and then from that point your site is defended. And it can be on a whole site basis, it can be on a per URL basis, and so on. So the key here is that actually you're up and running inside of minutes. But it's something that even with some of the very, very big brands that we're talking to, right down to much smaller traders, it's something that's not generally thought of. The thought automatically goes to success, pounds and pence, and marketing plans in order to make the very best out of Christmas. And I'm not discouraging that in any way, shape or form. All I'm thinking is think about causality. Think of the cause and the effect of that activity and the risk that it could pose, potentially not, but it could pose to your business and to your figures at peak time. So what we're saying is this: plan for your peak time. Talk to, you get your marketing guys and your IT guys talking to each other to make sure that those plans are well integrated so that you can expect what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and you can take steps to actually ensure that you make the very best out of your investment, essentially. It's about your return on investment. The worst possible case scenario is that your customers go to your site and they see a server error and they can't gain access or they get kicked out. With something like Traffic Defender, the worst possible case scenario is that they'll see a holding page, essentially, where all your messaging is there, they get a very transparent service in terms of they get information as to what's happening, how fast it's happening, and their experience is a great deal better. And that's, I think you'd agree, a far better worst-case scenario to have than the former. So we are specialists in performance, in web traffic, that side of things. So there's a few of us around this evening. If anyone would like to come and talk to us on a more one-to-one basis, then please feel free to come and find us afterwards. But thank you very much for your time, ladies and gents.